to hear her sing, but I had a trick up my sleeve. Rumor.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone here tonight. And I want to say at the very beginning, if that's some of you are meeting with some trouble hearing my voice, there's a couple of reasons for that. One reason is the back of this table, and the other reason is the front of me. And if you had a camera and could show you a side view, you could see that one of them ought to pooch in. Okay, of course we're all here for the purpose of interviewing our superintendent candidates. I'm going to call on our current superintendent just to give us a few words and talk a little bit about the timing and the timekeeping, et cetera, et cetera. Bernal?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Angel. I want to welcome the candidates, and I know that just by reviewing resumes and knowing the candidates, I think we're going to be with some great leadership in the next few years. So welcome, candidates. The first thing we're going to do is, Mr. Angel, is we're going to poll to see who is going to be the first candidate and second candidate. So we'll do that first. Then once that occurs, each candidate will first of all have 10 minutes to have an opening, and they may have some paper format for you. They may have a PowerPoint for you, whatever that may be. And they have 10 minutes, and candidates, I'll let you know when you have 2 minutes remaining. So you have 10 minutes, so please gauge. And then we'll have our series of questions by our board members. Each one of the questions, a 5-minute time limit for the applicant to answer the question, and I'll notify that person of 1 minute remaining. It would be hard to hold up the sign because they may be engaged, so I'll just say it. Then afterwards, the board members, you'll have 15 minutes to have some follow-up questions, but only 15 minutes for that time. And then you'll have 10 minutes to close, and I'll let you know when the 2 minutes are up. So that's the basic time limit that we'll have. And we'll have a backup. Ms. Bilodeau will be my backup timekeeper. Make sure that we stay on track.
And I trust that you have the little pail or whatever to pick out who's going to go first. And
yes, sir. I'm going to ask a member of the audience to pull, and
right.
and whenever you're ready, whenever y'all ready to go, and the second applicant will exit with Miss Thibodeau, wherever there's Miss Thibodeau, and they'll exit to another place in the building.
All right.
Are we ready to pull? Is that all? Or does any other board member have a comment?
Let me point out that let me first thank the audience as well as the public. We welcomed any and all questions, and I really want to thank probably my colleague Dawn for helping us consolidate the questions. Believe it or not, most of the questions centered around similar topics, and so you might not hear your exact question, or I might not hear my exact question, or one of us might not hear the exact question that we sent, but we kind of summarized it where we were kind of trying to be all-encompassing. You know, some deal with finances, some deal with, schools at risk, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that you'll see by the questions that we consolidated them into 9 questions, and we're going to ask both candidates the same questions. And what I've decided to do is that we're going to just assign question 1 to District 1, question 2 to District 2, et cetera, so that we may or may not be asking our questions. Probably won't, because, again, they were somewhat consolidated. Any other board members have any comments before we draw to see who goes first? If not, Bernal?
Okay, our first applicant will be Dr. Donald Aguillard, and then Mr. Francis Touchette will be second. So, Mr. Touchette, you can exit with Ms. Thibodeau, and we'll see you in a bit. And we'll have Mr. Aguillard go first, Dr. Aguillard. And I'll let Ms. Bilodeau pass out the PowerPoints before we begin with Dr. Aguillard. And just make sure the little green button's on there on the
Thank you. Let me remind my fellow members that these are the 9 formal questions, but the way we have it scheduled, we'll have several minutes after all the questions have been asked, if any of you want follow-up questions or other questions for that matter. But we want to try to keep it as evenly on the same keel as possible. We'll ask all 9, and then you can follow up if you have any other questions. And we'll start your 10 minutes now, Dr. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, Timmy, you had a question?
Real quick, Dawn, the question I was trying to ask is some of the questions are multi-layered. So in asking the question, if they aren't able to remember every single question in it, for instance, like my question has like 4 questions within it, is it okay that they read the questions at that point?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We want to give everybody as fair a chance as we can. Okay, Dr. Aguilar.
Good evening, board members. Recently, you advertised notice of searching for a superintendent of schools. You were looking for a dynamic, motivated educational leader. You were looking for someone with a strong background in leadership, and I believe that I represent that person that you were searching for. I have a couple of slides that will introduce you to the work that I have done along with the many professionals in St. Mary Parish. You know a little bit about my background. I spent 28 years in Lafayette Parish, working my way from biology teacher at Acadiana High School to assistant principal to director of management information systems to principal at Carencro High School for 4 years. My last year in the district, I was a part-time area director under Dr. Easton's leadership, and you know that I've been superintendent of schools from April 2004 to the current date. What you may or may not know specifically is the fact that we have been incredibly data-driven and results-oriented in St. Mary Parish. I bring to Lafayette Parish absolute knowledge of current educational policies in Louisiana. I live those policies daily as a superintendent in St. Mary Parish. The slide on the left represents 2004 data for St. Mary Parish. St. Mary Parish was ranked 44th out of 66 school districts in 2004 in district performance score. We had only one way to go, which was up. I told the board that with my leadership, we would raise test scores in St. Mary Parish. We started at an SPS of 79. In 2012, the last year of the 200-point scale for district performance score, St. Mary Parish was ranked with a score of 105.2 DPS. We breached the state average in 2008 and have been consistently above the state average since 2008. And the rate of growth in St. Mary Parish has been incredible. The table on the right represents the district performance score increase from 2004 to 2014. So that represents an 11-year period of time. During that time, St. Mary district performance score increased by 11.3 points from 79.1 to the 90.4 in 2014. That represented the 8th best, largest gain of any school district in Louisiana for that time period. During that time period, we focused on student literacy, and we also addressed numeracy as a desperate need for St. Mary Parish. Back in 2004, the gap between white and black students' achievement was dramatic, and it was unacceptable, and we began to deploy intervention practices to address student achievement and to more significantly close the achievement gap across subgroups. You can see the slide on the left is ELA, the slide on the right is mathematics. Back in 2007, the slide on the right looks at proficiency, basic and above, from 2007 to 2014. Note that St. Mary Parish has gained 13 points during that time period, ranking it 14th best in the state in terms of magnitude of change during that time period. The slide on the left is something that we just recently received 2014 data regarding. The St. Mary cohort grad rate was a very, very disturbing 68% in 2010. In 2010, the state challenged school districts to get to an 80% grad rate by 2014. Note the climb in the cohort grad rate in St. Mary Parish. It takes about a year because there's a year lag in cohort grad rate. For example, the 2015 grad rate, which will come out about this time next year, is largely done. High schools will be holding commencement exercises in 2 weeks. So the 2015 cohort grad rate is pretty much in the can. But notice that through a number of intervention efforts, we have dramatically outpaced the state of Louisiana in grad rate. Note also that in 2006, only 65% of fourth graders in St. Mary Parish passed the LEAP test. I challenged my instructional division to change that number dramatically. You see, it's important because we were sending 35% of our fourth graders to summer school. Very expensive, very, very difficult to staff. A 65% promotion rate is woefully unacceptable. We've been above 80 for quite some time. The most recent promotion rate for initial testers in fourth grade in St. Mary Parish was 84%. That promotional standard also puts St. Mary Parish 11th best in the state of Louisiana in terms of initial testers passing the LEAP test. I say all of that because these are important slides to understand. When we disaggregate initial testers in the fourth grade and compare students, regular ed students, against students in special services classes, I want you to note that in 2004, special ed students in the fourth grade only had a promotional rate of about 24%. That's unacceptable. Note that we have increased the achievement of our special ed students dramatically, so much so that today nearly 60% of special ed students in St. Mary Parish pass the fourth grade LEAP test. When you look at regular ed students, the increase was from 60% in 04 to 88% in 2014. The middle slide was a complete surprise to all of us. Many of our elementary intervention programs in St. Mary Parish
2 minutes.
have dramatically reduced the number of special ed students in the district. It dropped from 1,550 in 06 down to 1,254 in 2014. That's about a 20% drop in special ed students because there no longer need special ed because they've received interventions. So I bring to you the opportunity to help you with deploying high academic goals, insisting on early learning programs so that all of our children will have access to a high-quality, developmentally appropriate program. I plan to address at-risk students. I plan to address the graduation rate. I plan to engage in information transparency. I plan to communicate with all stakeholders. I plan to make sure that your schools maintain the highest level of safety and security for your students. I intend to recruit, attract, develop, and retain the highest level of teachers possible. And I hope that I can help you address the facility needs that Lafayette so desperately needs. With that, that ends my presentation.
All right. Dr. Aguilar, would you want to stay up there? Or would you like to sit
No,
down
I'd
here?
like to sit.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine.
45 minutes. I'd like to.
I agree with you.
Dr. Aguilar, would you prefer I say 1 minute left, or you want me to hold the sign? What do you prefer as your answer for your 5 minutes? Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Unless I'm done early.
Okay. So as I said earlier, I'll ask that each of us just ask the question that correlates to our respective district. I'd like to start off with Mr. Broussard from District 3, and which would be question 3 for us. I'm going to start with him.
Mr. Aguilar, good evening. What are your views on whether schools and teachers should be evaluated based primarily on the results of high-stake testing? Do you believe other factors should be considered when evaluating schools, districts, and teachers? If so, what other factors should be considered, and what weight should these factors be given in comparison to the weight to be given to test scores? Also, what impact, if any, should there be on schools, districts, teachers, and others, and our students when said students opt out of such high-stake testing? I know it's rather lengthy, so it's...
Yeah, it sounded like it had 3 parts.
Yes.
So, first of all, what are my views about the mechanism that we currently use to evaluate teachers?
Right.
The VAM teachers, the teachers that teach the high-stakes subjects,
Right.
are subject to being evaluated based on student test results. That's a thorny issue for teachers because I'm not sure that the matrix is valid. I'm not sure that we have enough data. I'm not even sure we know why we are doing this to evaluate teachers. You see, I have a firm belief that the principal should be empowered to make decisions about the quality of teachers, the number of teachers, the kinds of teachers, and the teachers that work at that school. I think if we hold principals accountable for being the instructional leader and we give them the tools necessary to evaluate teachers, then I think we're going to be moving more away from using test results and closer to a more collaborative relationship between the instructional leader, the principal, and the teachers, the people who deliver instruction. There are countless reasons why using test results might prove to be invalid or unacceptable to a classroom teacher. Classroom management issues, number of special ed students, retention rate, absentee rate, all of those issues, I think, have to be addressed. Now, luckily, the DOE is moving away from the rigid formula for evaluating teachers. They're asking principals to have override capabilities to make instructional decisions. So I think that's going to prove to be a more palatable relationship to evaluate teachers. Now, you asked about what other things should we be doing to evaluate schools and teachers and students? Now we're talking about my personal belief, but because I want you to understand the policies enacted by Bessie and the Department of Education, the superintendent is empowered to adhere to. My personal belief is that we are spending too much time and energy on testing our students, and we're not using the data correctly. We should be using it to assess what goes on in the schools and the effectiveness of what happens in the classroom. But that's my personal opinion. That aside, I would like to see more items incorporated into the school performance score. Right now, it's terribly, terribly difficult to use student test results to drive labeling of schools and districts and students. Now, the last part of your question that I remember was, what about kids who opt out? My general impression is that the opting out was something that was afforded to districts as a way to get past the issue about Park and Common Core among parental groups.
1 minute, sir.
I'm not sure that it'll ever get to the point where it'll be anything more than a kid who opts out will get a 0. And so the school will get a 0 and the district will get a 0.
Mr. President, I asked Mr. Leininger to share the questions with Dr. Aguilar, and I think we can agree that he won't have time to read through them all in the time period between questions, just so he can have it to refer to, because they are lengthy.
So what do you want to do? Okay.
We're going in order, whatever our district number, that's the question we'll be asking Dr. Aguilar.
So he's going to ask you number 6.
So, question number 6. If you are selected as superintendent, what is your plan for putting in place your administrative team? For example, do you have an administrative team coming with you in the transition to superintendent? Would you retain the current staff in central office? Would you reconstitute or some combination of these? If you plan on bringing an administration team with you, please identify who you would bring and why.
Okay. I do not have any individuals from St. Mary Parish coming with me to Lafayette Parish. I do not. I left Lafayette Parish with my family and moved to St. Mary Parish, and I did not bring a team with me to St. Mary Parish. Now, I did have the good fortune very early on to need to fill vacancies in the assistant superintendency, in finance, as well as in personnel. So I'm looking forward. I understand you guys have adopted a job description for a chief academic officer and a chief administrative officer. I'm looking forward to identifying 2 strong individuals in Lafayette Parish who might be interested in joining my team. I would love to work with the senior staff here in the central office. I think they'll find that I'm absolutely fair, but I insist on the fact that we're going to do things to make Lafayette look great. And if they're not comfortable with that, then their contract will not be recommended for renewal.
Thank you.
Britt?
Mr. Aguilar, please discuss your philosophy for improving academic achievement for at-risk students and describe your plans for turning around a low-performing school. What is your track record for these children in schools in your previous position? Also, describe your experience in developing and are implementing a plan to improve the educational outcomes for at-risk children. Please include benchmarks, details, and specifics.
Okay, first of all, I absolutely believe all children can learn. I think that's got to be a non-negotiable. All children can learn. I showed you a ton of evidence that we have in St. Mary Parish. We've addressed at-risk populations. We went into the lowest performing elementary schools. We targeted those schools for early interventions. One of the programs that St. Mary has really embraced is something called Fast Forward. We brought Fast Forward into our lowest achieving elementary schools. We also brought in a mathematics program to address numeracy deficits in those populations. We insisted that kids, at-risk kids, be given an opportunity to be remediated, to be double-dosed, to be taught with the highest degree of fidelity using research-based practices. We built our success in St. Mary Parish by addressing the at-risk population. I believe we can do that here. I mean, I've looked at your 2004 test results. I know that Lafayette has a number of Fast Forward licenses. I don't know that you have them. You have quite a few bought and paid for perpetual licenses for Fast Forward. You have enough licenses to put that intervention package at all of your DNF schools. And my recommendation would be that you look seriously at addressing literacy. Literacy is the heart of what drives student achievement. Kids have to be able to read and comprehend before they can learn very much of anything more than that. I think my strategy, Britt, would be to identify the at-risk population of students in the district and challenge the instructional staff to find intervention packages and be adamant about addressing the needs of those children, measuring their progress, addressing their needs, and in time, more and more of those at-risk kids will read at grade level, will be successful on LEAP and iLEAP test, will be successful in the PARCC test, and you will see that you can close the achievement gap. You've got about 25% of your students who are being educated in D and F schools in the district. Now, that's just a fact. More importantly, when you look at district report cards, you've got about 1/3 of your 3rd through 8th graders who are scoring below basic. That's the population that you need to address immediately in this next school year. Raise those scores and you will raise student achievement, raise school achievement, raise district achievement. Thank you.
Okay, question number 7. What plans do you have to improve teacher selection, hiring, retention, and morale, including, for example, attracting teachers for hard-to-fill subjects such as math and science, selecting and hiring more male teachers, and what involvement do you think teachers should have in not only teaching the children but in decisions regarding their curricula, methods, and classroom management?
Okay. I want to reach out to UL Lafayette immediately. There are quite a few districts who have grants from the Department of Education to work closely with university partners to help train future teachers in the Lafayette schools so that they would become our next cadre of teachers to hire, knowing the culture and the educational practices of Lafayette Parish schools. It's something that we wanted to do in St. Mary, but we're midway between Nichols and Lafayette, and just a hard place to reach. But I will tell you this. We worked closely with UL Lafayette, as an example, identified a cohort of 30 of our teachers, and St. Mary Parish paid for those 30 teachers to earn administrative credentials. We're now dipping into that pool of certified administrators and using them for our future selection of assistant principals and principals. I know UL Lafayette is ready, willing, and able to host a leadership forum for your principals to help them to develop more skills to be successful. Recruiting and retaining teachers will continue to be a challenge for all school districts. I know your personnel department hits the recruiting trail. There aren't enough candidates to fill your needs, but we're going to have to decide, how can we be different? Are we going to have to offer something to those few candidates to entice them to come to Lafayette? Because Lafayette's a great place to live and work, and I think you might be able to do that. You're going to have to help the Human Resource Department to find more candidates, and really we might have to grow our own. We oftentimes help our paraprofessionals go to school to earn credentials to become teachers. We have quite a few individuals who move from paraprofessional to classroom teacher. I think we're going to have to think out of the box to help ensure that we have enough teachers in all school districts.
Dr. Hagler, I'm going to ask you question number 2. What do you believe to be the top 3 issues or challenges facing the Lafayette Parish school system? With this in mind, what will your plan of attack for at least one of these issues? Moreover, what do you hope to accomplish during your first 120 days of employment?
Cool. Let me just tell you that I have an entry plan that I would like to provide you with in the final 10 minutes, closing 10 minutes. So let me answer the more pressing part of that question, which are, what are the top 3 issues or challenges? I think the first thing that I sense that you want as board members is you want to be an A school district. And if you don't want to be an A school district, then I think you need to tell the next superintendent to back off of that focus, because that'll mean raising test scores. That'll mean addressing the needs of at-risk students. That'll mean bringing in programs to help children to be successful. You can be an A school district. You see, the top isn't filled. There's room at the top for more districts to be labeled A school districts. But you have to address the academic needs unmet currently by the system. Everything from making sure more of our seniors score higher on the ACT, more of our seniors earn college credit, more of our 3rd through 8th graders score basic or above on test, more of our incoming 9th graders earn 6 or more Carnegie units in their first year in high school. See, those are all academic needs. You can be an A school district by raising student achievement. The second issue, the elephant in the room, is your aging facility needs in this district. I read a report yesterday by the Lafayette Consolidated Government. It was published a year ago. It said that the population in Lafayette Parish was set to rise from 220,000 in 2010 to 310,000 residents in Lafayette Parish by 2030. That's 90,000 more residents in Lafayette Parish. I don't know that you have a long-range plan to address where will those parents send their young children to school in the Lafayette Parish school system? You know that you have a staggering amount of facility needs. Let me just talk a little bit about something that you understand clearly. St. Mary Parish has 6 all-weather tracks in the district. Every high school has a new all-weather track. Every gym in St. Mary Parish is air-conditioned. Lafayette Parish has not been able to keep up with the facility needs. And so I want to help you paint the picture about the needs that you have that have to be met by the community by either a yes or no vote for more funding for facilities. And the third thing that I think that you need is you need a balanced budget, and you need to get back on track and focus on the things that matter most to you. You see, that $15 or $16 million deficit that you're dealing with today represents about 5% of your $300 million general fund budget. So that 5% is the pebble in the shoe right now, causing you grief. Think about, are you doing the right things with the other 95% of your budget? And are we focused on our primary mission, which is to educate kids? And if we are, then we ought to be focused on helping the classrooms to be effective.
Dr. Aguilar, I'll be asking question number 8. Have you studied the components of the community developed 100% in, 100% out plan for our schools, which is still available on the LPSS website? Are there specific components of the plan that you would not support, and are there essential elements that are missing?
I have reviewed the plan. It is on your website, and in my opinion, it never was funded. There wasn't enough money approved, adopted, allocated for that program to be successful. Now, I will tell you this. I also saw your most recent annual report that was presented to the board. The last one was probably a year ago. And your needs are academic. Your needs are raising test scores. The plan, the 100% in, 100% out plan is really getting kids to graduate on time. It really is to reduce the retention rate. It really is to make sure kids can read effectively by 3rd grade. Focus on the things that you're charged with, making sure you have adequate teachers to educate your children, making sure you have support mechanisms if they need help. That plan was not completely funded, not completely adopted, never had an opportunity to really play out, and it would take years of sustained effort to derive significant benefit from that. Focus on what you have. You have $300 million annually in a budget. Focus on your classrooms. Focus on children. Make sure you're taking care of their needs, and everything else will take care of itself.
Dr. Aguilar, I'll be asking you question number 1. What would you say is your greatest academic accomplishment? What was the demonstrated improvement? And what was done to make it happen?
Okay, that's going to be hard to choose because for a while I thought moving a school district from 44th out of 66 school districts from the bottom 1/3 in the state, that's a dismal place to be. It keeps you awake at night wondering how are you going to work harder and faster and smarter than other districts doing the same things to raise their student achievement. Because in truth, what happens is if you work just as hard as Acadia and St. Martin and Ascension and St. Tammany, you don't move on the scale. So to move, to elevate your position, you really have to work harder and smarter than other places spending the same amount of money or more on kids. See, I think moving from 44th to 27th in the state was one of the things that helped St. Mary Parish get back on the map. They feel good about public education. But now today I'm thinking that 81% grad rate in St. Mary Parish is quite an accomplishment. Because when we started that goal in 2010 and it was 68%, I did not believe that we could make it by 2014 to 80%. Now I'm starting to think it really is about reducing the special ed population in our schools. Do you know any other parish that can show you a 20% reduction rate in special ed students? I don't think so. So I've got a lot of good things to reflect on about my 11 years in St. Mary Parish. And actually, I'm hoping to take the next 5 or 6 years and help Lafayette Parish have a significant number of accomplishments to feel good about.
Dr. Aguilar, I'll be asking you question number 9. It's about a 3 or 4 part question, sir. Facing budget shortfalls for the next 3 fiscal years, Lafayette Parish School System requires a strong financial manager who can make clear judgments to the educational value of various programs. What experience do you have in budgeting for an organization? Have you ever been required to make cuts to programs and services in a school or district? If so, how did you approach the task to ensure the least impact to services to the students? And finally, what are your plans to address the budget issues in this district?
Okay, so yes, I do have quite a bit of experience having to deal with budgetary shortfalls. St. Mary Parish has been in financial distress annually over the past 4 or 5 years. We've been reducing our general fund budget to accommodate shortfalls in either MFP funding or sales tax collections or some combination of unexpected events causing us to reduce the amount of money available for instruction. I'm not happy to tell you that over the past 5 or 6 years, St. Mary Parish has slashed about 100 teaching positions from the buildings. We do that judiciously. We do that at the opportune time when necessary. We do that only when we can collapse classes and not overload other teachers left in those buildings. I think how you handle your financial crisis, your budget that you're wrestling with, is think of it as an onion and think of it as peeling it back layer by layer. And think about all of the programs that you've added over the past 10 years, all of the additional personnel, some in support roles. Think about the extra positions that you funded, and think about reducing that institution, the Lafayette Parish School System, layer by layer, peeling back programs and personnel and services, keeping in mind you are trying to protect the classroom teachers because they deliver instruction. And so just this year in St. Mary Parish, I had the opportunity to have several unexpected vacancies in the central office. I'm choosing not to fill all of those positions, all of them. because I have to demonstrate to St. Mary Parish teachers that I intend to protect classrooms to the extent possible. I think that's how you address the budget. Peel it back, but make sure at the end of the day that the services you provide help your students to be successful.
Dr. Aguilar, I'll be asking question number 4. Teachers in Lafayette strongly express that discipline is one of their biggest challenges in the classroom. As superintendent, how would you address this issue and support our teachers? Additionally, how would you approach increasing the personal accountability for students and parents as it relates to behavioral discipline in schools and on buses?
Okay. I likewise have heard that that's a possible issue. Quite frankly, I really don't know enough about the mechanism that is used. There's a discipline matrix that the board adopted that drives decisions about infractions and actions. I've heard, I've not substantiated, I've heard that there are many opportunities for children to receive disciplinary action before anything really specific happens. If that's true, I can sense that there might be some teacher frustration about what's going on in the schools. So let me just tell you, I would like to understand that whole issue about school discipline, classroom discipline. Again, I was told, but I did not validate, that the NPMOS preparatory program has a waiting list to get into that facility. I don't know that to be fact. That was said to me recently. I would like to understand, why do we have so many kids? If that's an alternative school environment, why do we have that many kids there? I did discover that the NPMOS preparatory school is an actual school, and so it gets a letter grade, and its letter grade is F, and its SPS was 23. Let me just tell you that in St. Mary Parish, we had an alternative school, and we asked the state to convert it to a program, because a program doesn't get an SPS score, which means the children from School A who are sent to the alternative program, that school keeps those test results. And what we did in St. Mary Parish is we set a goal that kids could only be there 45 days, and then they had to go back. The trigger is that when they go back to a school and they misbehave, then they need to go to a more permanent alternative program. So I think I want to understand the discipline matrix, the frustration expressed by teachers, and the mechanism about what happens to a child and how many times does he have to misbehave before the consequences become more serious. I'd like to have that whole conversation very early in that first 100 days of work in the district.
Oh, Burnell, how much time do we have left for?
Because I feel like I've answered 20 questions.
Well, you probably have, because many of them were multi-questions. Timmons was, I think, 4 questions.
And I don't think I answered all 4.
Just to be
According
fair,
to
I
the way our
compiled the
rule,
questions, but I'm an attorney, so I can't say things simply. So
Okay.
according to our guidelines we set up, you now have 15 minutes to
Okay.
do follow-up
50
questions.
minutes
15
of
minutes.
follow-up questions or additional questions, and then 10 minutes for your closing.
Yes, sir.
May I go first?
Sure.
Okay. And this is just because this is a follow-up on the question you just answered while it's fresh in your mind. One of the parts that I didn't hear an answer to, and I wanted to specifically ask it, is do you have any thoughts on increasing personal accountability for students and parents as well, not just from the school site and alternative programs, but how do we How do we address, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is make sure you have measures in place to hold children accountable. I think you do that by making sure that the discipline matrix is fair, but that at some point, if the child is unwilling or unable to cooperate with the classroom teacher and disturbs instruction, I think the consequence has to be you're moving towards some kind of alternative program. I don't know that that's the last step for a child. I think about 40 or 50% of those kids will understand the consequence of going to an alternative program for maybe as long as 45 days. That's a quarter of the school year. Getting to come back to their original school and cooperate and work and be respectful. Then if that doesn't work out, then maybe they go to a more permanent alternative site in the district. So I think that's how you hold children accountable, but you do not give them, and I don't know that you do, countless opportunities to be disruptive. You deal with it because it's unacceptable to the classroom and to other students and to teachers. Now, how do you hold parents accountable? You have a number of ways you might try doing that. In St. Mary Parish, kids who go to the intervention program, they have to bring their children to that site. They have to physically drive their child to the alternative program and drop their child off every day. I'm not suggesting that that's what you want to do, but I think you have to hold parents accountable. That could include anything from having them go to Saturday clinic with their children, if that's acceptable, to asking them to cooperate with the school personnel. Otherwise, the consequences are they go to an alternative site.
Dawn?
This is in follow-up to question number 3. When you talked about the evaluation system, to the extent permitted, do you think the Lafayette Parish School System should develop its own evaluation system of teachers and based on the standardized testing? And
yeah, I don't know that that would be acceptable to the DOE. I think if we asked and we developed our own evaluation system and we approached Bessie, we might receive favorable input on that. At this point, I don't know of any district that's not using the state-mandated system. So I think we have to work with the legislators, we have to work with Bessie to try to change and tweak that system.
Any other questions? Okay, and then Timmy.
Dr. Aguilar, I'm referring back to your presentation. It was slide 5 where you were talking about narrowing the achievement gap. One thing I noticed was that between 2010 and 2014, both in ELA and mathematics, you actually had a decrease in performance with the African American student population. And my question was, can you attribute that to something in particular?
I can. I told you that we cut 100 teachers from our educational institution, the St. Mary Parish School System. I'm not happy about that, but financially it was necessary. We've reduced the number of classroom teachers. We're also reducing intervention programs because of budgetary reasons. But I will tell you this, it is true that the gap has grown over that period of time, but I want you to know my staff is working right now to address the needs of those children. And let me just tell you something that we didn't have to do in St. Mary Parish. I'm assuming you send your 4th graders to summer school. You're required to remediate those children. We send our 2nd and 3rd graders also to summer school because it makes no sense to wait until they're 4th graders to remediate for deficiencies. We communicate with our parents. Children who are deemed not ready for either 3rd grade or 4th grade, we provide a summer enrichment program. It's run at the same site as summer school. we remediate kids in the 2nd and 3rd grade so that by the time they're 4th graders, they don't have to go to summer school so they can pass the LEAP test. So we are right now changing our instructional day for elementary schools to give more time for ELA and math. We're doing that because of that increase in that gap that we've noticed as well.
Timmy?
Eric actually asked one of the questions I was going to ask. I actually have 3 questions, but I will refrain, and I'll wait to give other people a chance. As far as a school like Northside, which has failing scores, what immediately needs to happen, in your opinion? If you are a superintendent today, what occurs tomorrow and within the first 120 days?
Okay, well, first of all, high schools are incredibly difficult to change. And I told you in the warm-up PowerPoint that Northside's grad rate for next year is literally done. It's calculated.
Right.
It's going to be a year before the state releases it. So you're not going to be able to impact their grad rate. It's also another component of high school scores is ACT scores. 25% of a high school's accountability is ACT scores. I'm pretty sure they have supplementary classes at Northside High School to help students to better prepare for ACT. If not, we would want to look closely at what they're doing and evaluate the effectiveness of those extra supports for ACT. Another part of high school accountability is the end-of-course test. End-of-course tests are also opportunities where you can remediate for deficiencies. The staff would have to get there immediately and look at what are they doing and what more can be done to help more students to be more successful in the end-of-course test. So I say all that to tell you that changing the grad rate is really about helping students rapidly recover lost Carnegie units. Kids who go through the 9th grade and have only 4 Carnegie units have a very, very high chance of never graduating on time. We built mechanisms in place. We called it 5th block. Kids could stay an extra block of time at the high school and recoup credits at an accelerated rate. More Carnegie units that kids possess, the greater probability that they will graduate on time. So I think all of those things could help Northside, as well as Karen Crowe High and any other high school.
Any other members? Mr. Broussard?
Dr. Aguilar, on question 8, you mentioned the 100 in and 100 out was not. One would argue that it's overfunded. You said it wasn't funded well. Was it wasn't funded well or implemented well? In your opinion, would you adopt that or rework that?
Let me just tell you that I did see it on your webpage, and I reviewed it twice. And so my characterization, based on that simple review, was that there were outlying years of that plan that were not yet funded. Now, if I'm wrong in that, that's because of the cursory read that I went through to get ready for it. I would rather than adopt a program that had not been vetted thoroughly by the staff, I would propose to the school system that we would focus on student success. And my commitment to you would be that we would address the needs of children, much like the 100% in, 100% out program. We would provide the necessary supports for children to receive the help that they need, whether it be psychological help or health-related help or academic help. I think we can develop a program that we are addressing all children, serving all of their needs.
Mr. Angel, our 10 minutes is about up, but less than a minute.
Okay, I'll let Timmy ask the last question.
We're going to go 15, right? Or is the 15 up?
10 closing. 10 minutes closing.
Oh, okay. Real quick, how are you going to handle the, if made superintendent, the budget process for both places?
Okay, say that again. How am I going to handle
The budget process for both places, because I'm sure
for
you being
for
the
St. Mary Parish?
Yes, sir. For being the gentleman that I know you are, how are you going to handle helping them through their budget cycle and as well ours? And then a follow-up question with that would be, what would be the start date for you here?
Okay. We have been working on what we call a considerations file for St. Mary Parish. It's the changes in revenue and then the necessary adjustments to budgets and programs. We've been building that considerations file since January. We're waiting on the MFP to make sure that it is what was projected. We're also waiting for a couple of outlier pieces of information that address the needs financially for the district. They're in pretty good shape budget-wise. They have that considerations file nearly with a balanced budget. And by the way, we started with a deficit of about $4 million. And some of those cuts are painful. We're peeling back the onion. We're going back to where we were several years ago in terms of number of teachers, number of programs, number of services. I've worked very closely with St. Mary Parish regarding this application. In fact, they met yesterday preliminarily, and they adopted the Lafayette Parish application form to be used by St. Mary Parish for their potential superintendent search. They worked closely with Bob Hammonds. They worked on the timing of the advertisements. They worked closely with the job description as well. And I say all of that to tell you that my intentions were to work one more year in St. Mary Parish. That would give me in St. Mary Parish 12 years as superintendent. So they know that they're either looking for a new superintendent in the short order, or they're looking in about 12 months. So they feel like they're ready to go. Now, I've worked closely with my board president, and I've received assurances that pending action by you and pending successful negotiation of a contract and adoption of that contract by this board, that we could be working closely together by the middle of May, if you so desire. And if that's the case, I would like to begin attending your board meetings. I would like to have some voice in the financial discussions, and I would like an opportunity to work closely with the finance department to make sure. I know this budget's been looked at several times, long meetings, but I want another opportunity to look through it as well, because I want to be able to make sure that that budget reflects the best opportunities I might have to be your instructional leader.
I'm
All
sorry,
right.
Mr. Angel. It was 15 minutes, so we still have a minute. I'm sorry. We still have 1 minute left.
So it'd be a yes or no question.
I think we'll just move to your 10-minute closing. So the answer is neither of the above.
So I spent 28 years in Lafayette Parish. Lafayette Parish has been actually good to me, personally and professionally. My wife is in the audience. Karen retired from UL Lafayette. She worked both at Acadiana High School and at Lafayette High School. Our three sons all graduated from Acadiana High School. I feel like I'm at the place in my career where I can help you to help Lafayette get back on the map as an A school district. And I believe together with the board, and I sense that you are committed to working together. I think we can approach the community at some point and address the facility needs. I've given to you not a 120-day plan, but I've given to you some ideas about things that I intend to do as we get ready to work closely together. I got a couple of things that I want to make sure you understand, that it will take the entire community for Lafayette Parish to become an A school district. Make no mistake about that. Everybody is going to have to work together to make that happen. And if you look on the back page, Ron Edmonds, I read that quote a long time ago, and it stayed with me through my 40 years as an educator. We can, whenever and wherever we choose, successfully teach all children whose schooling is of interest to us. We already know more than we need in order to do this. Whether we do it must finally depend on how we feel about the fact that we haven't so far. You see, you have a good school district. You have lots of A and B schools. But you have 25% of your students in D and F schools. And you have 1/3 of your students in the 3rd through the 8th grade scoring below basic. I think we can reduce those numbers. We can raise student achievement because you have the resources. It's going to take the adults to step up and do the things that adults need to do to help children to be successful. So what I have for you is a vision of the things that I want to do as we move closer to July 1 and we start to work together very closely to help Lafayette Parish to be what it can be. It can be an Ascension Parish. It can be a St. Tammany Parish. It can be an A school district. But it's going to take everybody working together. And with that, I close and ask that you give me serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aguilar. We'll take a 5-minute break and we'll be back with our next candidate, Mr. Thibodeau. I think I'll start with Timmy this time and go this way. Absolutely. Okay, we're all back in our respective places, and we will now interview Mr. Touchette. Just for the record, you'll have 10 minutes for an opening. We'll have an hour of questions and answers. We have 9 questions, specific questions we'll ask you, and then we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes for follow-up questions. So you make your 10-minute presentation, your opening presentation here, and at the end of the questions, you'll have 10 more minutes to make a closing presentation.
Got it.
It's all yours, Francis.
Board members and audience, thank you so much for allowing me to share with you this evening. I would first of all like to say that I am Francis Touchette. I am married to Keisha Touchette, and we are the proud parents of 5 kids, 4 of which attend public schools. 1 will be attending public schools next year. I was born and raised here in Acadiana, graduated from Kaplan High School, attended the University of Southwestern Louisiana, and I will tell you that I am very privileged to have been coached by Coach Nelson Stokely. Coach Stokely brought to me values and discipline and leadership skills that you will see that's displayed here tonight. I start off by saying that I have a 25-year educational career. 22 of those years were in Vermilion Parish, where I was a teacher, I was a coach, I was an assistant principal, and I was a principal. My core values as a school administrator has been and will always be that it's always about the kids. I have a very simple philosophy. Every kid, every day, no matter what. Focusing on student achievement. When we talk about today and what is happening in our school system, we hear many excuses. We hear many things that people are saying that is going right, going wrong. And what I say to that is this: the most important person to those particular kids is the classroom teacher. The classroom teacher that we need to be able to take things off of their plate. We need to simplify things. We need to provide professional development. We need to be able to provide the resources for them to do their jobs. And when we provide those resources, let's get out of their way. In order for that to take place, we have to have instructional leaders in every one of our schools in Lafayette Parish. An instructional leader that is going to support that teacher, that is going to do the things that they have to do in order for that teacher to be successful. I will devise a plan for you in a few minutes that will focus on the support for teachers, the support for principals, that is going to be very much in tight to what we are going to do from the district level. Those 22 years, 15 of it was dedicated to high school principalship in Vermilion. For the last 3 years, I've had the privilege, and not many people can say that they have this privilege and this ability to do. I've had an ability to bring people together, a team of people made up of teachers, made up of principals, and made up of supervisory staff. And that team has worked with 12 different superintendents throughout the last 3 years. I have worked with superintendents that have districts as big as St. Tammany, 55 schools, 46% free and reduced lunch. All the way down to the smallest school, the smallest district, that had 10 schools, 100% free and reduced lunch, St. John the Baptist, and listen to this statistic, 1 point away from being a B. And I've worked with school districts in between, the team and I, Acadia, St. Martin, Iberia, Tangipahoa, Rapides. I have looked at the systems and worked alongside of superintendents in the areas of, one, the hot topics, and everyone has heard this. We have Act 3, early childhood involvement, and we need to make sure that every one of our kids, when they're entering already, and I've worked alongside of Act 3. The other initiative on the other end of the spectrum, y'all have heard about it, Jump Start. My knowledge as far as Jump Start, my knowledge in dealing with superintendents has been just that. We have worked alongside of them and made sure that those two initiatives on both ends of the spectrum were there. But here's the thing that we had to do. I sat down with superintendents and my team sat down with superintendents and we went through their finances. We looked at their state dollars, we looked at their local dollars, we looked at their federal government dollars, and we got through the down and dirty of what is it that we are going to have as our priority. And from that, we needed to make sure that we had a system for that to take place. We worked with superintendents along evaluations, working with teachers on what now the state calls Compass, the rubric, making sure that teachers, and I want you to think about this, as a classroom teacher, we need to make sure that every classroom teacher has the ability to know that rubric, to know what's expected before an evaluator goes in there. We need to make sure that every one of our principals understand the rubric, they understand what the rubric is asking, because when it's all said and done, our number one priority is we want student achievement to take place. So we worked with districts, with principals, with teachers to make sure that alignment was there. We worked with districts on building principal and teacher capacity. My plan for Lafayette Parish is going to be just that. We're going to work from the bottom up. If we know that student achievement is our number one goal, and it's something that we have to have, there's no more excuses that kids have to come first. When we make decisions for adults, we're not going to be where we need to be. When we talk about who has the closest impact, is that teacher. I just referred to what we did when I was an administrator. The same type of work was done as far as the teachers are concerned and building their capacity, their resources, building the principals and their resources. But here's the one thing that actually breaks down and has done in 12 different districts. Having the appropriate district staff to go into the schools, not be at central office, but to be into the schools and supporting our principals and supporting our teachers. That is the difference makers. That is basically separating a St. Tammany with 46% with an A status to maybe a district that is not there yet. I come to you with a plan. I come to you with experience that no one else has in the last 3 years. 12 different superintendents, 12 different district staff, 12 different sets of principals from all walks. And here's the astonishing results. This past year, 11 of those 12 districts increased their district performance scores. Only one did not. Here's some more
2 minutes, Mr. Francis.
astonishing things that you gotta know. Right here in Acadia Parish, Principal Irma Trosclair, Acadia Parish, 2 years ago, 55F. This past reporting, 99B. It was not about programs. It didn't cost any money. It was investing in principals, and it was investing in teachers, the support from my team and that district. Right there in Iberia Parish, in 1 year's term, Generette Elementary, an F status. In 1 year, we moved him up to a B. You have a plan in front of you. And I will conclude with that plan on my 10 minutes. I am saying to you that I will be a superintendent that will be hands-on. I will be the most visible person in this district. I will lead by example. I will have my staff with me. I will talk to teachers, I will talk to principals, and I will be firsthand of knowing what their needs are. I'm an instructional leader, and I'm proud of where I've come from and what I am doing now. I look forward to the dialogue between you and myself, and I thank you.
Does he have a copy of the questions? You have a copy of the questions, Mr. Touchette?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What we'll do is each of us will ask you the question, and the question that we'll ask you is just going to correspond to the district that we represent.
Absolutely.
So I would start on this end of the room this time with Timmy, and give him the floor. Timmy?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Touchette,
Yes, sir.
would you prefer I tell you we have 1 minute left, or hold up the sign? Which do you prefer?
Call me 1 minute.
5
I'll be
minutes.
as engaged
All right.
as I want.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be reading question number 4.
Number 4.
Yes, sir. Question number 4 is, teachers in Lafayette strongly express that discipline is one of their biggest challenges in the classroom. As superintendent, how would you address this issue and support our teachers? Additionally, how would you approach increasing personal accountability for students and parents as it relates to behavioral discipline in schools and on buses?
Mr. Shaston and board members, let me first of all say that we should all have high expectations for every student in Lafayette Parish. The most important thing that we need to make sure that we do is that we communicate those high expectations to every single parent that that particular school serves. We need to make sure that that communication is something that is communicated to the students on day one. But here's the thing that breaks down. It is the inconsistency of those expectations. We have to assure that when we inform our kids on day one, and we inform our parents that we are consistent and we are holding our kids accountable for their actions. Every teacher deserves to have a classroom free from distractions. If I had a wife or I had a daughter teaching, I would want to make sure that they're able to do their jobs. So the expectations need to be communicated. Needs to be communicated from all different levels, and the most important thing is consistency. When we talk about those expectations go down all the way, and I see that it inferring to buses. All of those things, again, is something that I will work with the school leadership teams. I will work with the teachers. Our staff will be there, and we will require that everyone is informed, and the consistency that needs to take place is there, because that's where the breakdown takes place, regardless if it's on buses, etc. Let me add one more thing as far as addressing, supporting our teachers. There's a principal in that school that should be focused on student achievement. That principal needs to, again, as I said, those expectations for kids need to be held every single day. And we need to make sure that our teachers are aware of that and they are supported with that. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Mr. Touchette, I'll be asking you question number 9. It's about a 3 or 4 part question, sir. Facing budget shortfalls for the next 3 fiscal years, Lafayette Parish School System requires a strong financial manager who can make clear judgments to the educational value of various programs. What experience do you have in budgeting for an organization? Have you ever been required to make cuts to programs and services in a school or district? If so, how did you approach the task to ensure the least impact to services to students? And finally, what are your plans to address the budget issues in this district?
First and foremost, when we are looking at our budget, we need to understand that we have a priority. And if we don't focus on that priority, which is student achievement, we could be putting ourselves in more of a financial bind. When kids in schools actually fall out, we are now subject to those parents having choices to send their kids other. So my main thing that I would do is to assure that student achievement and the direct impact of what student achievement is asking for is protected at all means. My background has been with 12 different superintendents, and I have worked with them on their budgets, $500 million budgets, in establishing that priority and asking ourselves the question when we sit down at the table: does this program or does this have an impact on our priority? And if it does, we better hold it tight, because we don't want to put ourselves in even more. But we need to be able to make decisions, and we need to make some of those hard decisions. I didn't say this to you, but I will say it to you. This has nothing to do with the school system. For the last 13 years, I've been the finance chairman for the city of Abbeville as a city councilman. I have led the charge as far as accountability, as far as finances. I made sure when there was decisions that need to be made, there had to be made. Because again, no matter if it's a school system or whether it's a school board or a governmental entity, we have to always remember what is our priority. And from that point, we need to be able to ask ourselves the tough questions. I can tell you that I have that experience in working with those superintendents and working alongside of government. For 4 consecutive terms, I've had people elect me because of my stewardship as far as the monies in the city of Abbeville is concerned. I bring that to the table. I bring that type of understanding of what government and how school systems work together.
Mary?
Ms. Touchette, I'll be asking question number 1. What would you say is your greatest academic accomplishment? What was the demonstrated improvement? And what was done to make it happen?
Well, I'll just say that in my administrative experience as a high school principal, I became the principal at Erath High School and was there for 7 years. And we built a team. We built a team that was focused on that simple version. Every child, every day, no matter what, focused on student achievement. It was not about programs. It was about building that human capital, building that teacher, building me as a principal. From the beginning of our onset, we started off at a 99 in the system. Over a 7-year period, we grew to 140.8. We were the #1 public high school in the state of Louisiana. Big, small, no matter what, we were the #1 public high school. And it was no secret to what needed to take place. I said to you earlier, we need to take things off of teachers, and we need to make sure that they have a narrow focus on what is it that their job is. Provide that development for them. Focus the attention on the principal and making sure that they are supporting those teachers and building themselves as instructional leaders. And to me, that was the success. I will add this also. I mentioned to you earlier in Acadia Parish, 100% free and reduced lunch. So it is possible. Our brain is not rich. It's not poor. It's not white. It's not black. Every kid can learn. Our team, along with that staff, proved that in 2 years, 55 to a 99B. And guess what? The kids didn't take homework home. The focus was on building those teachers and building that principal. Generette Elementary, prime example. 1 year's term, 1 year. From an F to a B in a year. It's because we're going to pour the resources. We're going to make sure that that is happening. So those are my accomplishments from my ability as a principal and my ability as a leader working with superintendents throughout the state.
Eric?
I'll be asking the question number 8. Have you studied the components of the community developed 100% in, 100% out plan for our schools, which is still available on the LPSS website? Are there specific components of the plan that you would not support, and are there essential elements that are missing?
Well, I will go back to, yes, I have looked at your plan. I have studied your district. I have seen what has happened in the last administration, the last couple of administrations. I will go back to my vision is that we're going to pay attention to every child. We're going to pitch every day, no matter what. And we're going to meet the needs. And that support is going to happen around. We're going to have school-embedded teams that are going to be in the schools, working with our D and our Fs, the schools that need it, and providing that support, not telling principals or teachers what to do, but working alongside of them to assure that their needs are met. We're going to make sure that our schools of A, B, and C status get that same type of approach. We're going to get district-wide support teams to make sure that is happening. That focus is going to assure my version of what 100% out is. I think that we need to be very simple, and we need to be focused on what's going on with kids and meeting those needs and providing the resources that it takes in order for every kid, every day, no matter what.
I'm going to be asking you question number 2. What do you believe to be the top 3 issues or challenges facing the Lafayette Parish school system? With this in mind, what will be your plan of attack for at least one of these issues? Moreover, what do you hope to accomplish during your first 120 days of employment?
First 3 things that I think, and I've been doing some extensive study. I've been watching you guys on TV. I've been actually in the audience, believe it or not, watching, getting interaction, learning as much as I can about your current status. I think that the number one thing that we need to look at is we have some schools that are struggling. We have some D and F schools that we need to fix now. We need to take care of that business now. We have to pour those resources, and we have to make sure that that is happening now. No excuses. We have to take care of that. Second thing, just recently, your graduation rate went down 3 percentage points. I can say to you right now, whether it be 100%, 100% out, every student, every day, no matter what, but my philosophy, and I'll use that one as far as my explanation of how we're going to deal with graduation rate. Third thing is, I think we have some facility issues that we need to somewhat take care of some immediate needs. Our kids need to go to a school that is safe, it's orderly, because regardless of 1 and 2, if we don't take care of that, then we are putting our kids in a situation where they could be at harm. I will explain my plan for increasing graduation rates. First and foremost, every high school, we will sit down with the school leadership team and we will analyze the graduation rates. We will let the data drive our decisions. What's happening at Northside is different that's happening at Acadiana. We will devise a plan with each of those administrative teams to address their needs. And by the way, I've looked at your graduation rates. I have my own ideas about it. But I can say to you right now, this is where the breakdown happens. I've worked with these 12 superintendents over the 3 years. There are systems in place that these superintendents have put in place. For example, it does not happen in high school. We have to identify where our problems are with our overage middle school students. We have to have a plan to monitor. We have to have a plan to mentor. And we have to have a plan for remediate. And we have to catch that then. If we have students that are getting to the 9th grade, overaged, the first and foremost thing is we have Topps University and we have Jumpstart Path that are basically 2 tracks. We have to make sure that the parents and we have to make sure that the students are fully aware. We're not asking them to make a decision at that time. But we need to make sure that we monitor every freshman in the high school age, because listen to this, if they don't get out of 9th grade, their chances of being a high school dropout out of 9th grade has increased probably 50%. We have to, at that point, look at those 9th graders. We have to provide that remediation. We have to be aware of what is happening with those students. And if we do that, then we have a chance. I think that Mr. Burnell and his staff have done an excellent job of making sure that the pathways that now the state has put out is there and we're able to point people in the right direction. But here's something that I would do, is I would meet with every 8th grade and every 9th grade parent. I would have our staff meet with them and to present their options of what is going to happen. My son is a graduate. He goes to UL. My daughter is a 10th grader. What was required of him is completely different what was required of my daughter.
1 minute, Mr. Touchette.
We have to make sure that our parents are aware of those things. My biggest fear is our parents are not aware and kids are moving into a certain system and they can't graduate because of some type of technicality or some type of miscommunication. Thank you.
Okay, question number 7. What plans do you have to improve teacher selection, hiring, retention, and morale, including, for example, attracting teachers for hard-to-fill subjects such as math and science, selecting and hiring more male teachers, and what involvement do you think teachers should have in not only teaching the children but in decisions regarding their curriculum methods and classroom management?
Okay, so let's talk about retention and hiring. I think that we do a lot for ourselves by establishing that environment in the classroom and getting that principal to support that environment. Teachers talk. Teachers are going to talk about what is happening at one school. We need to make sure that we lead by example. We make sure that that is something that teachers are able to say that in Lafayette Parish, they're going to be given the resources, they're going to be given the training, and they're going to be given the opportunity for principals to provide effective feedback as they move forward. I think it's what's another thing that's important is that, one, teachers need to be involved with this process because, one, who knows best about what's going on than the teacher? I think that we need to get a teacher advisory committee. We need to get input from our teachers, get some insights of what is it that's working well, what is not. Allow them, along with the board and myself and our staff, to come up with a plan of, first of all, of trying to correct what our issues are, but more importantly, a plan to go out there and to recruit and get the things that we need to. Yes, there are priorities as far as science, social studies, male teachers. We have to start off by taking care of our business and making sure that we're providing the right working environment and everything else will fall in play. Again, teacher morale is so important to the success of our school system. We have to make sure that they are inclusive. We have to make sure that they are involved. And my plan is going to be to involve them in every entity of that, even to the point of they will come out to the universities, and we will go to the days of which teachers are out there doing, visits with school systems, and we're going to let the person that is working for Lafayette Parish do the talking for Lafayette Parish. That's the difference. Teachers respond to teachers. They're not going to respond to me. They're not going to respond to HR. They're going to respond to the teachers that are doing the work in the classroom. So I think that is a very integral part of making sure that that selection, that environment, that recruitment, that retention is happening. Thank you.
Mr. Touchette, I'll be reading question 5. Please discuss your philosophy for improving academic achievement for at-risk students and describe your plans for turning around a low-performing school. What is your track record for these children and schools in your previous positions? Also describe your experience in developing and/or implementing a plan to improve the educational outcomes for at-risk children. Please include benchmarks, details, and specifics.
First and foremost, that at every one of our schools, including at-risk, we need to have a school leadership team that is made up of our administrators and our teachers. And we need to look at the data, and we need to let the data drive our decisions. We need to make sure that from the principal level, that they are providing the support that needs to take place with that particular data. I will create a school embedded team that will be in schools 4 days a week. That team will be made up of science, social studies, ELA, and math teachers and SPED teachers, with a leader of that team to lead the work. And we will work alongside of those D and F schools and make sure that the support is happening. We will pour every bit of resource to make sure that that is happening, because that right there is a contributor to where we may be losing kids out of our system. My track record is just as I stated earlier. Same things that we are dealing with here in Lafayette Parish. Dale Henderson, the superintendent of Iberia Parish, had to face that last year. To stand in front of those parents and those kids and to say that they were going to be a school of choice. We partnered up, we supported, we did everything possible, and we changed it in a year. Is it going to be harder to sustain it? Yes. We're going to have to do even more, and we're going to continue doing. And again, I've stated to you about South Crawley. That is unheard of in a 2-year period. National Blue Ribbon nominee this year for that growth in a 2-year period because of effective teaching, effective school leadership, and the support from the district and from our team.
Justin?
Mr. Touchette, if you are selected as superintendent, what is your plan for putting in place your administrative team? For example, do you have an administrative team coming with you in the transition to superintendent? Would you retain the current staff in the central office? Would you reconstitute, or some combination of these? If you plan on bringing an administration team with you, please identify who you would bring and why.
First and foremost, that I believe that we will take the approach that we will look at every possible member of this team here in Lafayette Parish and evaluate every single position. I will say to you that I will bring in 2 people that will be supportive of me on my right and my left. One that will work with curriculum, one that will work with the other aspects of administration, the buses, so on and so forth. I am hopeful that that is being allowed. I think that any good superintendent always has support from the people that they have worked with and they have done the work with. I will tell you that every single person is someone that would be considered for other positions, but I think those positions would be something that I would look toward. There are 2 people that I would bring with me. One is my deputy now, Mr. Greg Terrio. Mr. Greg Terrio was the principal at North Vermillion High School. School had an A status. He exemplifies the same type of drive and the same type of leadership that I have. And most importantly, he's a disciple. The other person that I will bring will be someone that will work also alongside of Greg and myself. That is a person that is also on my team. Her name is Tessie Whitestein. She is from St. Bernard Parish. She is someone that has the knowledge of coaching in respect to coaching teachers, coaching principals, doing the work as far as coaching, organizing. That I think that those 2 individuals, but I would also like to say that I would hope that the board, after thorough evaluation of other employees, if it is possible, and if it's a need for us to be able to support our D and F schools and our A, B, and C schools, that you guys would be open to working with me along those lines. Thank you.
Mr. Broussard?
Mr. Terrio, I'll be reading question number 3.
Mr. Touchet.
Terrio. Mr. Touchet, I'm sorry. Got Terrio on my mind. What are your views on whether schools and teachers should be evaluated based primarily on the results of high-stake testing? Do you believe other factors should be considered when evaluating schools, district, and teachers? If so, what other factors should be considered, and what weight should be given in comparison with the weight to be given to test scores? Also, what impact, if any, should there be on schools, districts, teachers, and other students when said students opt out of such high-stake testing?
Okay, good. 1999, our state began its state accountability system. In 1999, we started with LEAP and iLEAP. And at that time, we went through a cycle, and we now at a point where we have changed over or we're moving towards something different. I will say that you, along with me, we have to always go back to we want high expectations for our kids. I, as a superintendent, as long as our teachers and our principals are aware of those expectations, I have no problem with any type of assessment as long as it is a true indicator of what we are aware of and what we are doing in the classroom. High expectations needs to be something that we all say to our kids. As a parent, that's what I say to my kids. It's something that, again, is that the end all? I would say not. There are a lot of different qualities that gives us an idea. And we have our pupil progression plan. And we have certain mechanisms within that pupil progression plan for us to be able to overstep any type of test results. We need to analyze every situation. We need to look at the kid, the parent, what had happened throughout the year, and we need to look at that. So other factors outside of that assessment, by all means, needs to be taken into account in our pupil progression plan. Students who opt out, there is a right that every parent has, and every parent has to ask themselves the question of what is it that their beliefs are, what is their reasoning for, what is going on with why are their kids opting out. But when it's all said and done, I have my 5 kids, and I make the ultimate final decision about what's happening. But we will make sure that every one of our principals sits down with these opt-out parents and lay the facts down and let the parents at the end of the day make the decision of what's best for them and their kids. And I think that it needs to be something that we need to hold to. But again, I want to make sure it's clear that the communication is the key to making sure that parents make good, informed decisions in reference to kids opting out.
Okay, Mr. Touchette, this, I guess, concludes part 2 of our 4-part interview, I suppose. Part 1, of course, your introduction. Part 2 would be the 9 questions. Part 3 will be questions that we'll ask, whether it's follow-up or other questions that are not pre-prepared. And, of course, number 4 would be your closing remarks. Absolutely. So with that, I would recognize any member from the board who wants to ask a question of the candidate. Timmy?
Mr. Touchette, in your resume it has SPS scores with dramatic increases. I mean dramatic. Something that I would jump for. You mentioned there's no secret to it, no secret. Tell me the secret. And Mr. Touchette, I know people are laughing. Specifically, what exactly was done?
Okay.
You're made superintendent today. I've got an F school. What do you do specifically from day one? And not the random, not the overall, specifically. What's going to happen? How'd you take a school from 45.6 to 85.7 in 1 year?
First and foremost, every school in this district is different. Mm-hmm. We identified what the strengths and the weaknesses were of that particular school. We made sure that there was a plan of action by the leadership team of that particular school. We specifically made sure that the teachers were given the resources, but most importantly, things were taken off of their plate, and they're specifically we're targeting what those weaknesses are. We had an instructional leader that just didn't talk. An instructional leader that went into the classrooms and provided constructive feedback to teachers about specifically, listen to this. This is not the secret. What students are doing as far as their work is concerned. Not what the teachers are doing, but what the students are doing. And when we focus to that level of what kids are doing, that's when the changes occur. But again, that effective teacher that has a narrow focus, an instructional leader that is providing the feedback. And look, let me say to you also, there is a district staff took off the handcuffs and put it in gear, and they got into those classrooms alongside of those teachers, modeled lessons, did PD with teachers, provided resources for teachers. So I think it's a very systematic approach of one starting from a backward design of specifically what are the needs. Building those resources with those teachers. Taking things off their plate. The principal, making sure that they are the instructional leader, not the manager. Let's talk about what kids are doing in classrooms. That's going to make the difference. And having a district and a network team that partnered up and said that this is not going to be an F school. And when those things happen, and you look at specifically what kids do, and you can target what kids deficiencies are and make sure that it's very meaningful. When you can get to that level of what kids are doing as far as their work, that's when education changes.
Mr. Touchette, over the last few years, we've had an alarming rate of teachers leave our system for whatever reason. What would be your ideas and your goals working towards better teacher retention in our parish?
First of all, we need to identify what the problem is. And the way you do that is I think that there needs to be a teacher survey that is sent out to all of our teachers. That does not require them to put their names on. And we compile those results and we look at where our problems are and identify where those problems are. Secondly, once those results are laid out, we need to target and fix those problems. And as I stated to you earlier, Mr. Britt, we have to use our voices of what we are doing well to go and recruit and to retain. Teachers are a very powerful network in this state. Believe it or not, the teachers in Lafayette talk to the teachers in Iberia and in Acadia. We start doing the right things and start addressing some of our issues and fixing those problems, then it's going to happen naturally. It's going to happen. But we have to be very transparent about what those results may be, because it's very important that we address those to fix those problems so that we could use just the word of mouth of teachers to retain and to bring teachers to this district.
Yeah, Mr. Broussard.
Mr. Touchette, in question 4, teachers in Lafayette strongly express the discipline is one of the biggest problems. We've got a school, NP Moss Prep, who house most of the said students the discipline problem. Other than what you said on the first answer, that understanding the handbook and letting the principals, let the parents and the students know what's expected of them, how would you deal with such a problem?
First and foremost, we have kids that have social, emotional problems. I think that we look at that particular school, we identify what the trends have been as far as those particular kids are concerned. We provide the resources for that to take place. We make sure, and let me go back to this. I'm a firm believer that discipline is tied into lack of the ability to do the things as far as their education is concerned. Kids are going to act out. Why? It's peer pressure. It's something that is going to take place. It's something that we have to address the educational thing, no matter where, if that kid is at a 3rd grade level, we have to move them forward. We do that, we'll take care of those discipline problems. But I think the key to a school like that is to have a compassionate leader, to have a leader that understands that where these kids may have come from, what are their issues that they're having, and look to mentors and look to role models so that we can partner up and make sure that these kids have something that they can lean on when the times get tough.
Eric?
Yes, sir. My question is, you talk a lot about leadership and team building, but I guess it's a fact we don't always have the people on the team that we want on the team.
Gotcha.
Could be board members, could be teachers, could be administrators. So my question is, can you give us examples or maybe a hypothetical example of how you would handle someone that you would consider a bad teammate?
Well, again, we know that the game changers are our teachers. The people who are going to support those game changers are going to be our principals. I will say that, one, sometimes we have no other option. We need to provide the resources, to provide the modeling, provide the things that needs to be able to help that teacher. And believe it or not, sometimes that does not happen. And it's eventually to a point where, but I'm going to ask you the question, Would you want your kid to be with an ineffective teacher for 3 years in a row? And I would say that you would probably say not. So we will provide the resources, we will provide the intervention, but when it's all said and done, we're going to make decisions that are best for kids, and that should always be when it comes down to dealing with personnel. I will say the same thing for principals. We cannot afford for our principals not to be the instructional leaders. We have principals that could be pushed in that positive way. Our principal PLCs will be geared toward not listening to the bus transportation guy, but to talk about how can they become a better instructional leader. We will let the bus transportation guy and the foods person shoot emails and go and talk to those particular people at their schools, but when principals are gathered together, we're going to focus on them being effective leaders of their school, looking at their data, having a plan of action, having a plan in which there's going to be some results, and by all means the follow-up. And the follow-up is the key, that we have to make sure that we are following up with those teachers and those principals to make sure that the results are where they need to be.
Mary?
Ms. Touchette, earlier you said that you had met with the parents of, I think, 8th graders and 9th graders. I want you to explain that process and what was the results and how it improved, whether it was discipline, grades, performances, and I just want to know what happened in that process.
First and foremost, that the reason for meeting with 8th grade parents and why our districts along with our team met with 8th grade parents was, first of all, to make sure that they are aware of the changes that is happening with the diploma tracks. Meaning that not only does the student have to pass their 6 EOCs, but there is a credential that the student, if they go down the Jump Start pathway, that they have to pass. I want to make sure that our parents and I want to make sure that our students are fully aware of those changes, because again, they may have kids that have graduated, which was a different type of ball game compared to now. And the results was not about discipline. It was about the awareness and the options and the pathways of which they will be pursuing once they get to that 9th grade year. I believe that, again, during the 9th grade year, we need to meet with those parents again. We need to do the overkill. We need to make sure that those parents are fully aware. I do not want a parent calling you as a board member 3 years down the road that says, my kid 5 years ago did not have to do this. But you're saying now, I want to have it documented that our parents were fully communicated, they were fully advised in both of those instances in reference to what are some of the changes and the things that are going to be taking place with their high school students. And again, I want to make sure that they understand what we're going to provide. We're going to provide mentors. We're going to provide people that are going to monitor those kids. We're going to provide remediation. We keep going back to how we're going to move schools, how we need to pay attention to every student every day, no matter what. And by doing that is to have systems in place to take care of kids every single step of the way.
Jeremy?
2.5 minutes remaining.
Okay, this will be the last question, Jeremy.
Awesome. Mr. Touchette, what do you think needs to be done to address our facilities issue in this district?
First and foremost, I would want to look at your master plan. Get a needs assessment of every building, every facility we have. If it's something that you have, we need to study that. We will make sure that we look at the immediate needs of making sure that our kids are safe. We have to start looking toward a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan, and yes, a 20-year plan. And we have to look at the resources that it's going to take in order for that to happen. Through my superintendent advisory committee, that's going to be made up of principals, of teachers, of board members, of civic organization, district staff. We will look at those results and we will come up with plans and we will bring it back to the committees and bring it back to the full board so that you guys, we could consider what is our next steps and what we need to do. But my main thing, and I will cover this now, I want us to ask ourselves, is every single one of our campuses in Lafayette Parish the safest it could be? I do not want to have to wake up one night or one morning and something has happened. We need to provide a one point of entry to every school. A one point of entry. That is being done in lots of districts. St. Tammany, you can't get into a school unless there is a one point of entry. Lafourche, Iberia, right down the road. We want to make sure that our kids are safe. You guys have constituents. You guys are relying on me. I want to make sure that our kids have the safest environment for them to be able to get that quality education from those teachers and those principals that are providing. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes part 3 of our evaluation. The final part, Mr. Touchette, is another 10 minutes that you have in your closing. You may do it from where you sit, or you may go back to the podium, whatever you prefer.
This is a plan. This is a 90-day plan that is based upon research. This is a 90-day plan that involves all stakeholders. This is a 90-day plan that will establish that Lafayette Parish #1 priority is student achievement. It will look at the data from the district level. It will look at the data from the school level. It will provide the support mechanisms from the district level to the principal level to the teacher level. We will have at every one of our DNF schools, 4 days a week, at least 4 days a week, a team of people that are supporting these principals and these teachers around their data and what those needs are. You have a timeline of what we will do as far as student achievement, of who is involved. On the back of that, I move to graduation rates. It's a big, hot topic right now. Our kids are not finishing. I've said it over and over again. We need to monitor, we need to mentor, and we need to remediate. And we need to make sure that every day, every student, that is happening. When we talk about the game changers at South Crawley, we're talking about the principal and the teacher capacity. There's no program. No one should tell you there is a program that's going to change what's going on in the classroom. What's going to change in the classroom is going to be the investment that our district puts into a teacher and principal capacity. The administration, I would like to meet with each and every one of you individually, talk about how you want me to communicate with you, how I can keep you advised of all different things that is happening in the district. This is just an initial 90-day plan. I want to look at within 30 days getting a retreat together, sitting down with each and every one of you, coming up with a philosophy, coming up with a plan of how we're going to roll this out, how we're going to continue to support the things that are going on. We're going to look at the priority of what's happening with our finances. And we're going to ask ourselves, number two, we're going to evaluate all programs, all job positions, as it relates to student achievement. If we don't do that, we take a chance of other schools falling down. And then now we have another issue as far as finances. Infrastructure plan, Mr. Hidalgo, that's the 15, that's the 20, that's the 5, that's the 10, that's the immediate needs that we need to do now. But there's going to be a one point of entry that we're going to start working on to keep our kids safe in Lafayette Parish. And most importantly, we're going to have a public relations plan. We're going to make sure that we promote. There are a lot of great things that are happening in Lafayette Parish. We're going to take the community back. We're going to get those kids back to Lafayette Parish. We're going to make sure that that is happening. We're going to promote it to every end. And that is the only way that that's going to happen, by us doing the right things in our schools, promoting those right things, and making sure. And yes, that is something that should be normal business of a school board and its superintendent and the staff that goes on, that works within. Those things will speak for itself. I come to you as an instructional leader. If you want an instructional leader, you want someone to change schools, then I am your candidate. If you want someone that is not afraid to make the decisions, I am your candidate. If you want someone that is going to treat teachers and principals with respect and provide them with resources, then I am your candidate. I don't envy your decision. The public is looking, the public is watching. We have a lot. I can say this, that I will be loyal to you and to this system to assure that it is pursuing that A status. And I will do that through my actions, and I will do that through my leadership. I thank you for this opportunity. I don't envy your decision. Best of luck. I hope everything goes well.
Thank you, Mr. Touchette. And I want to also thank you, the audience. You have been very cooperative, very professional, very courteous. And for that, I want you to know I appreciate it, and I'm very thankful.
Mr. President.
Eric?
Yes, sir. I'd like to propose a motion that we go into executive session to review the work history and professional competency of the two candidates.
And I'll second.
Motion and a second that we go into executive session. Any comments from any members of the board to the motion? Members of the public? Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
District 1?
Yes.
District 3? Yes. District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yes.
District 7? Yes. District 8?
Yes.
District 9?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
9 for, none against.
My tongue used to be last. I don't know. Fancy.
to have a motion to go back into regular session? All right. Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we go back into open session.
I'll second.
Right, motion by Timmy, seconded by Eric. Any comments from any members of the board relative to going back into regular session? Any members from comments of the public? Same motion. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
District 3? Yes. District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yes.
District 7? District 8?
Yes.
District 9?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
9 for, none against.
Okay, so now we are back into regular session. The meeting is continuing.
I'd like to make a motion to select the superintendent.
I'll second.
Motion by Timmy that we select the superintendent, and seconded by Dawn. Do we have any comments from any members of the board? Any members of the public? Madam Secretary, call the roll.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
No.
District 7? Yes. District 8?
Yes.
District 9?
No.
District 1?
Yes.
District 3? Yes. District 2?
Yes.
7 for, 2 against.
All right, motion carries. We'll ask Mr. Hammond to pass out the ballot. Write the name of your choice on the ballot and sign it, please. Yes, just sign the front.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just because I voted no don't mean I shouldn't get one.
Oh, it's right here.
Oh.
I agree with you, Jeremy.
I voted for you, don't worry.
I left mine in there. Did you sign? Yeah, hand them to me. You pass them this way when you're done? Now I'm going to read them out. I'm going to read them. Yep. I'll read them. And I'm going to say who's voting. No, you're gonna make it. Could continue upon a contract. I'm not.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have all 9 ballots. I'm going to read the name of the school board member and the person for whom that school board member voted. Jeremy Hidalgo, Donald Aguilar, Eric Knizik, Donald Aguilar, Mary Morrison, Don Aguilar, Dr. Timmy Chasson, Donald Aguilar, Tommy Angel, Don Aguilar, Britt Latchley, Donald Aguilar, Dawn Morris, Don Aguilar. Mr. Elroy Broussard, Don Aguilar. And Justin Santini, Donald Aguilar. You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to hire Dr. Donald Aguilar, subject to a successful contract negotiation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that we in fact hire Dr. Aguilar, subject to contract negotiations. Madam, any comments from many members of the board concerning the motion? Members of the public? Madam Secretary, you call the roll.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yes.
District 7, District 8,
Yes.
District 9,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 3, District 4,
Yes.
District 2.
Yes.
9 for, none against.
This concludes the items we have on the agenda. I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned. This is official record.
Oh, Chairman.